Can we beat Dante Must Die using only the funny motorcycle weapon?
Come on. 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 Yes! Yes!
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you so much, man. Oh, you shouldn't have, really. Thanks. It feels really great being done with this challenge. I guess we're doing this again, huh? Hey guys, I hope you've been having a good time since the last video, when we took on Dante Must Die using only Cavaliere. Because I sure haven't. To let you know a little secret, I've been roaming the depths of Mission 16, endlessly performing the spin-out attack in hopes of finding purpose again. You see, after the previous challenge, life for me has felt hollow, completely devoid of meaning. This is not how I imagined things would feel after we defeated Virgil at the top of the climb path. I'm sure there must be some other challenge, a final frontier maybe, for us to take on with our trusty companion weapon. Luckily for us, ever since I recorded the previous challenge back in 2013, Capcom has released a DLC update for Devil May Cry 5, adding a new game mode called the Bloody Palace. Our search for power is not done just yet. But before we get into the details of the Bloody Palace and this challenge in general, I would like to thank you, yes you, for the amazing response to my first video. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of you have already played Devil May Cry, and therefore have some experience with one or many of the different versions of the Bloody Palace. But for the fledgling devil hunters among us, the Bloody Palace is essentially the DMC version of a tournament arc. And if you've ever seen a tournament arc before, either in anime or, I don't know, the Olympics maybe, you should know that they are awesome. If you want to claim yourself a champion of the Bloody Palace, you must complete its 100 stages in succession. Each stage contains a group of enemies, or a story boss of varying difficulty. These stages are interconnected, meaning you start each stage off with the same amount of health and devil trigger that you ended the previous stage with. The tournament is also single elimination, meaning that if you die, you have to start over all the way back from the beginning again, as there are no checkpoints to be seen. As if this wasn't bad enough, I have added an additional restriction for myself, which some of you might have been able to glean from the title and thumbnail of this video. And that restriction is that I'm only allowed to use Cavaliere at any given time. Even if you've never played this game before, you're probably still aware of Devil May Cry's combat system. To counteract bosses and enemies being really strong on higher difficulties, the game lets you dip your feet into what is essentially an ocean of options when it comes to approaching fights. There are two issues with this. The first one being I can't swim. The second one is that this is not fun. I need to torment myself a bit more for your amusement, which is why I'm severely limiting the options the game provides for me. Enter Cavaliere. Cavaliere is an awesome motorcycle that deals a boatload of damage by shredding its opposition while switching gears. But as a fucked up, evil joke from the development team, it is also by far the slowest weapon in the MC5. On higher difficulties, this is a big bane, as being slow paints a big target on your back, especially when attacking on the ground. To go into a bit more detail on what this rule entails, essentially I'm only allowed to damage or crowd control enemies using either version of Cavaliere. This obviously means I cannot use any other weapon at Dante's disposal, which also includes guns. But it also means I can't use any version of its royal releases, nor am I allowed to use Sin Devil Trigger by any traditional means. But more on that later. Tools at Dante's disposal that don't impact enemies are fair game, which means I'm still allowed to use Trickster Tricks and Royal Guard blocks. I'm also permitting the Rose Taunt, because it's cute. Some of you may be asking yourselves, why Cavaliere? To summarize the thought process from my last video, I think that Cavaliere is a bit underappreciated, both in standard play and combo videos alike. But most importantly, I need to one-up this guy from the comments. So, can we clear the Bloody Palace using only Cavaliere? Well, I guess there's only one way to find out. If you watched my previous Cavaliere challenge, you'd know that we will be using Cavaliere R for this challenge. The differences between the weapons are minor, but Cavaliere R has an additional move in its arsenal, Red Line, which is a great mobility and parry option. So, today will we join in the war on microtransactions? On the side of Wait a minute. Yeah, I completely forgot you can't use DLC weapons in a Bloody Palace. So today we'll be setting our wallets aside and just use the normal, boring one instead. To be honest with you, I don't even really care about red line, I just wish the weapon was red. The Bloody Palace is designed to get progressively harder the further you make it. This is achieved by making the enemy layouts harder at the later stages, and by increasing the difficulty at certain points in the palace. In essence, this means that the Bloody Palace actually starts off at a human difficulty, which in turn means that the enemies are super weak. This is both good and bad. It's good because the early stages will be very easy and won't take much time, but it's also bad in the sense that it's kind of boring. On the flip side, we get a perfect opportunity to practice some of the moves we generally can't afford to use much later in the palace. Because of this, the first 19 stages of the palace fly by without many issues at all, really. Which, like I explained, there really shouldn't be at this point in the challenge anyway. One thing I should point out, though, is stage 18, where we get to greet an old friend of ours, the Fury. In the previous Cavaliere challenge, the way we handled these guys was by using redline for a quick and easy parry. Now that this isn't an option anymore, we need another, perhaps even better, way of dealing with him. That's why I went deep into the roofs of the Clypath, bootcamping for weeks before starting this challenge, in order to find the mathematically best way of handling the Fury. And after a few minutes, I found it, and it's called Full Throttle. While not being as fast as Redline, meaning you can't use it entirely reactively, it has a quality Redline never had. It actually allows you to punish the Fury after parrying. You see, while both Redline and Full Throttle take a long time to recover from, Full Throttle mediates this through its damage output. If you use it while in Devil Trigger, Dante will end the attack by launching Cavaliere forward, dealing massive damage. What's even better is that the first use of Full Throttle by itself is not enough to force the Fury to recover, meaning you can use it again as a follow-up while it's laying down. This is a clean 2-shot on anything below Dante Must Die difficulty. Oh, how the tables turn. After about 10 minutes of freestyling, we finally reach the first boss of the Bloody Palace, featuring none other than Goliath. Something that's really cool about the Bloody Palace is the fact that you get to face bosses with characters that normally wouldn't be possible, which is precisely the case with Goliath. Normally, Nero is the only character that gets the pleasure of fighting this massive meatball. I don't think Goliath needs much of an introduction, nor an explanation. The name kinda speaks for itself. He's a big dude that swings and throws stuff at us. He also explodes at times, which is kinda strange now that I think about it. Seeing as Goliath is probably the easiest boss in the game, and that the difficulty is not too high yet, this fight is a breeze. If I'm being honest, only an idiot could lose at this point in the challenge. And honestly, I would probably delete my channel if I did. Luckily, we absolutely style on Goliath. I almost feel bad for him. I mean, come on, this isn't even close. God damn it. Well, we had a good run, guys. At least you got one video out of me. By a cruel twist of fate, we accidentally pull off a royal release, meaning we just lost against the easiest boss in the Bloody Palace. I'm gonna keep it real with you. This does not feel any good at all, but at least we didn't die, so we got some cope to lean on. And for what it's worth, it's still early in the challenge, meaning we didn't lose too much time. Some of you with a keen eye may have noticed there's a timer at the top of our screen that is constantly ticking down, and are wondering what it actually represents. The timer is basically a hard time limit you have for completing the Bloody Palace. When you defeat enemies, or clear a stage, some time is added to the timer, meaning your performance has some bearing on how much time you'll be given to complete the palace. This is more stressful in theory than it is in practice, as the timer is extremely forgiving, so unless you're trying some particularly brutal challenge, you probably never have to think about it, at least from my experience. After taking on the Fury again, which definitely goes just as well as last time, we find ourselves back for a rematch against Goliath. This try is not quite as stylish as the last one, but at least we actually got the job done, so let's just forget about what happened last time, alright? The stages to the next boss fight have some really great enemy layouts for us to experience, like this floor, where they put 10 million bats in the same room just to annoy me specifically, or stage 25, where we had to fight one threatening lizard and two less threatening lizards at the same time. Other than that, we managed to set a few new records, and we show the fake motorcycles what spinning really looks like. But this was just the appetizer. The full course meal has yet to come in stage 30. This is probably the best stage the Bloody Palace has to offer in terms of letting us use the spin out attack, which we of course take full advantage of. But our fun is short-lived, as not one, but two of my favorite enemies show up at the end of the fight. My track record of handling these guys is not stellar, which I immediately put on full display, as I lose about 30% of my HP for no reason whatsoever. This isn't really an issue at this point in the run, but it really shouldn't happen regardless. Also, I got some questions in my previous video on how to properly jump cancel. I'm not actually too great at that myself, but luckily for us, jump cancelling with Cavaliere is practically useless, since most of our damage comes from switching gears, which we don't want to cancel early. Performing enemy steps, however, is quintessential to staying in the air for as long as possible. You see, the longer we chain attacks together in the air, the more we'll be affected by gravity, which will eventually pull us down to the ground again. But if we perform an enemy step from time to time, we can stay in the air for as long as there's enemies for us to jump on. This is something you can practice really easily on stage 33 using this enemy type, the Death Scissors. Now, there are some enemy types that falling is actually useful against, but most of the time we want to stay away from the ground while attacking. So, if I had any advice to give, it would be for you to practice staying in the air for as long as you can against this enemy. Speaking of flying, has anyone else noticed that there's a lot of fire bats in the early stages? I mean, I get that they want to show off the cool fire graphics, but do they really have to put 5 of them on the same stage? Even killing one of these assholes takes long enough. Unfortunately for these bats, they have to taste the full fury of Dante's Sin Devil trigger. Just look at that teleport, they didn't even know what hit them. Because nothing did hit them. You see, if we use quadruple S to enter Sin Devil trigger far enough away from the enemies, it has no effect on them. And the teleport itself doesn't do damage or anything, which makes this completely legal in this challenge. Stage 33 is when we really kick this strategy into high gear. Get it? Teleporting not 1, not 2, but 3 times in total using Sin DT. This is of course completely unnecessary and super fucking risky, but hey, at least I can actually say that I used it in this challenge. We fight some more fire bats on stage 39, before taking on the next boss of the Bloody Palace, Artemis. This is yet another one of Nero's story bosses, and her main gimmick is flying to the other side of the arena all the time, making me wish I could ride Cavaliere for real. When she does actually stay still, Cavaliere has a really solid matchup against her, as its aerial attacks are extremely strong and can knock her to the ground fairly easily. Ironically enough, this is a double-edged sword, as we probably lose some damage by knocking her down, as it's harder to consistently hit her there. After handling her dashing for a bit longer, we manage to bring her down to about as close to 1 health as you can get using this weapon. This is when I get the brilliant idea of trying to kill her using the Rose Taunt. This goes just about as well as you'd expect from me at this point, but at least we got a really cool Royal Guard block from it. Getting scared that I might actually run out of my 27 minutes doing this, I chicken out and just kill her using Cavaliere instead. Oh, come on. Look, here's the spinning attack. You love the spinning attack, right? Yeah. Having officially cleared stage 40, we now have the privileges of entering the Son of Sparta difficulty. This means enemies will hit slightly harder and have slightly more HP, but until they can use Devil Trigger, I'm not too concerned. Someone who should be concerned is this Fury, on the other hand. After my previous video, I have some pent up anger that I need to get out somehow, which is exactly why I have to humiliate this Fury's entire bloodline by killing it using only the spin out attack. Stage timer be damned. I just really like the spinning attack. It just looks ridiculous and it always works. Oh, come on. Something to keep in mind when fighting Queen and Pusas is that you should always keep at least 3 bars of Devil Trigger on you at all times. Or you might leave yourself open to grabs like these. At least take me out on a date first. Before I manage to get a restraining order in place, Capcom decides that sending another 3 of these my way would be a great way to test my mental fortitude. If you know me, you know that I always follow my own advice, which is why I immediately exhaust all of my Devil Trigger again. Through some timely Royal Guard blocks and parries, we do still get out of this unscathed. I think there should be a mechanic in the Bloody Palace that allows you to take a shortcut to the next stage if you manage to jump all the way up to the ceiling on the stage you're currently on. Sadly, Capcom will never allow me to have any fun. So we're stuck killing this Lusacha. Is that how you pronounce it? Which just keeps teleporting all over the place. We still managed to set a new record though, somehow. Okay, another new mechanic suggestion. Allow the behemoths to dig all the way down to the previous stage. That way they can help me kill the Lusachas, instead of launching me into outer space. But payback is sweet in the end, as we managed to use full throttle to launch Cavaliere through this behemoth, killing the one behind them. Which is at least slightly funny. For some reason, there are a lot of floors in the 50s that just put a bunch of the same enemies on the same stage. First it was the Queen Abuses, then it was the Behemoths, and now the Proto-Angelos. And these guys aren't even the worst part. Stage 59 puts a bunch of these tentacle things in the same place. And man, these tentacles got hands. We're lucky we got out of this one without getting our bacon cooked. Stage 60 brings us some peace and quiet, as we're challenged by none other than our namesake, Cavaliere Angelo. This is probably my favorite, or second favorite boss in the entire game. The clang you get when parrying one of its attacks is just awesome. And Cavaliere has an excellent matchup here as well. When we attack an enemy using Cavaliere, we can press the attack button again at certain times to switch gears. Switching gears primarily lets us deal a lot more damage, but it also produces the hit lag you see here. This hit lag comes in extremely handy during this fight in particular, as we're practically guaranteed to parry any incoming attacks while we're in this state. And unlike his Dante Must Die brethren, or sisters, this version of Cavaliere Angelo is built like paper, meaning our own Cavaliere both literally and figuratively shreds through itself in no time. I'm also happy to report that we completely aced the third pillar of Cavalierism, of not letting them charge too quickly, as we don't let them charge even a single time during the entire fight.
Not slacking, are you?
Something I've learned over the past two challenges is that not all combos are meant to damage your enemies. Some are meant to damage your own self-esteem by being so bad people on the internet will make fun of you for them. At least we went out as we lived, spinning. But we're not done just yet. Would it actually be a real behemoth fight if we didn't spin out for at least a little bit? See, this guy gets me. Our newfound strategy for handling the Furies keeps on giving, as the ones on both stage 64 and 66 gets taken out without breaking a sweat at all. It's kind of funny seeing these guys completely fall off a cliff after what happened in the last video, but you won't catch me complain. Also, did you know you can actually move only by switching styles? I sure didn't. Though I don't really ever see this coming in handy, so maybe that's not too much of a surprise that I didn't. Remember what I told you about always keeping at least 3 bars of Devil Trigger, so that you can break out of grabs if you need to? Good thing that never became an issue again. Stage 70 is probably the hardest one in the Bloody Palace so far, as we're faced with fighting 3 Furies simultaneously. And as a bonus comedy bit, we start this stage off with too little Devil Trigger, meaning we don't have enough to use the full throttle bike throw as liberally as we want to. In situations like these, it's really important to keep track of what each Fury is doing, as you can roughly tell how many times they'll teleport before attacking you, by the stance they take before teleporting the first time. Clenched Fist means teleporting like 3 times before hitting you. Crouching means striking immediately. And standing while brandishing the blade means teleporting once, but with a slight delay. Knowing the differences between these attacks is key to allowing yourself to pair them with a weapon as slow as Cavaliere, and spamming Royal Guard helps a bit too. When all is said and done, we get out of this fight practically unscathed. Nothing of note really happens until stage 74, where I decide to face tank a Lusace explosion, for whatever reason. I guess we can still afford to limit this just a little bit. My carelessness continues into stage 75, where I allow the butchers to slice my ass into one of those packets of cheese you can find at your local supermarket. As per usual in this run, we don't get punished at all for making stupid mistakes like these, as one of the butchers gives us a massive health drop as it dies. Not only do we not get punished for that, we also don't get punished for using the spin-out attack here, as we somehow managed to use this to defeat the rest of the butchers along with the behemoth. Don't ask me how this works, because I'm genuinely at a loss for words myself at this point. This is also a new stage record, so truly a triple fucking whammy for this one. Also, you won't believe this, but I actually managed to correctly dodge the Hell Judecca spinning slash for once. Thank you, I know. Turns out this wasn't a fluke either. After managing to get parried like 5 times in a row by this Hell Judecca, we actually managed to dodge the spinning slash again, which means we are... Come on, you don't need to share for that too. Now it feels more patronizing than anything. Another stage divisible by 20, another boss. Malphas is a very large, teleporting chicken thing that's also kinda gooey and gross. At the beginning of the fight she uses her Yamato drumsticks in an attempt to poke our eyes out, but we can just use our trusty trickster dashes to get around this. Something annoying about this fight is the targeting. As you can see, the game targets her and not her chicken, which makes most of our swings miss since we're placed very awkwardly after we try to trick to get close to her. After somehow managing to topple the chicken over, we face another similar issue, and that issue is that her hitbox is really small, which is something Cavaliere generally doesn't appreciate. As you can see, switching gears is pretty much impossible from some angles, as we just swing right through her most of the time. These things combined make this fight take a bit longer than previous bosses we have fought so far, but we have to use our 1 hour timer for something, I guess. Something to keep in mind is that you should stay far away from her when the chicken starts dripping with more sauce than usual. Not only do you not want that gunk on your controller, the charges it makes when it's oiled up have massive hitboxes and deal a surprising amount of damage. This time we at least get the angle we want, letting us deal some massive damage in the process. Using hidden techniques I didn't even know existed, we managed to chain 3 topples out of nowhere, putting this chicken in the oven for good, with a bit less hassle than I was expecting. Did you catch that? Yes, your eyes are not mistaking you. The enemies can now use their own devil trigger, meaning we have officially entered the Dante Must Die difficulty. I guess we can say the true challenge starts here, which also means we have to be a lot more careful than before, as one stray hit can end in disaster if we get unlucky. Which is why we only get hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times on the next floor. I swear these guys bring out the worst in me for some reason. But I probably shouldn't say that, as my performance on stage 83 isn't exactly flawless either. I didn't notice this while I was playing, for obvious reasons, but what is that thing that the behemoth keeps throwing around? Is it its broken chains? I've never seen that before, I don't think. Speaking of the behemoth, I love that it can deal collateral damage to other demons. Just look at it kill this Queen and Pusa. That's pretty funny. Other than that, we use the spinning move for a bit, and teleport to this nobody using Sin Devil Trigger, which immediately goes straight to hell as it decides to grab us. Though this time we actually have some Devil Trigger to spare, so we can break out of it easily. But this is probably the highest stage you will ever see me use to teleport during. Stage 88 is a true skill check, where you get the honor of fighting 2 DMD Furies at the same time. This is a fair bit harder than the previous Fury stages we have encountered so far, as our full throttle strategy is no longer a one-shot. To make matters worse, I completely forgot about this stage, which of course means I exhausted all of my Devil Trigger on the Proto-Angelo on the previous floor. What makes matters even worse is that I mess up the first full throttle, leaving me with 2 little Devil Trigger again. After some improvisation, while desperately trying to keep one Fury off the screen for as much as possible, we make it work, sending both Furies on a romantic weekend trip to Brazil with a sick double kill. Contrary to popular belief, at least among those of you who have not played the Bloody Palace before, there are not only boss fights every 20th floor. Here on stage 90 we bowl with this cute pupper, King Cerberus. In the previous challenge, King Cerberus was probably the second hardest boss in the game, so we'll see how it goes this time. What I've learned since last time is that Royal Guard blocks are essential to winning this fight. This is especially true in his fiery phase, as we can farm Devil Trigger from his swiping attacks. This actually goes really well for us, for once. I barely mess up any blocks at all, and we deal a good amount of consistent damage along the way. After some time, King Cerberus sticks a fork in a nearby power outlet, causing him to switch elements. As he does this shit happens again. I guess it's his chains this time? I don't know how I never noticed this before, because it seems pretty common by the looks of it. All the flying objects cause me to lose track of something important. The falling icicles that pose an immediate threat to my well-being. Honestly, it seems like King Cerberus himself was caught off guard by this, as he decides to switch forms 2 times in a row for some reason. But in the end, I'm the one who's the most brain damaged, as I get hit by a million more icicles for no reason. All in all though, the fight is going really well for us. And pretty much all of this is due to Royal Guard. I'm gonna keep it real with you. Royal Guard is by far the best style in the game. Being able to fully negate damage is extremely strong, especially in a fight like this, where you can't realistically punish the boss a lot of the time. And you know, I'm all for it. With this style on my side, there's nothing stopping me. Oh my fucking god. Oh. We accidentally performed a royal release. Again. If doing this on stage 20 was bad enough, imagine doing it on stage 90 after you spent an hour and a half getting here. This stings. It stings a lot. In case you're wondering why I keep doing this, there are a number of ways to trigger a royal release. The most common way to do it, and the way I did it just now, is by pressing the style button while holding the stick forward. I'm sure you can see how easy this would be to fuck up, as the Trickster air trick has the exact same input, for example. Well, no point in dwelling on it for too long, I guess. On to attempt number 3. Seeing as we have a little bit of ground here to cover again, I'm gonna try my hardest not to spend too much time on these early stages. So, it's time to bring out our speedrunning strategies here. Which mainly involves just having some good luck when we throw Cavaliere during the aerial Swordmaster combo. Time which we immediately throw away by repeatedly dashing into the Butcher's attacks, a move that might as well be called a sniff special at this point. Regardless, we sent our pal Guy Fury straight to hell once more, and made our way back to Goliath, which only took about 7 minutes this time, or about 1/10 of the time it takes to cook a meal of crispy sliced roasted potatoes, if you prefer to measure your time that way. As our meal is still in the oven for another hour or so, we have to settle by satiating our hunger with Goliath instead. Our hunger for violence, that is. Because I'm not eating whatever that thing is.
Do you have any idea where that's been?
Up your butt?
Just like in real life, the first stages of the 20s go by way too fast, and you don't really remember anything noteworthy about it. And at 27, the dementia starts kicking in, and you'll try to use the Fury strategy on Proto Angelo instead, which will be way less satisfying than you had hoped for. On a more positive note, we can use this fire bat to blow up all other enemies in this stage for a super cool finish. Check this out. God damn it. I guess we'll have to settle with this chain explosion instead. With about 40 minutes left before our dinner is ready, it's time to face Artemis again. This time she shows off a new trick, where she attempts to float into space. This might look really stupid, and to be fair it kind of does, but if we leave her alone for too long in this state, she will explode into an arena-wide attack that deals a lot of damage. When you're playing as Nero, the catch is that you can't use your Devil Brain to hook yourself to get closer to her. Instead, you'll have to incapacitate her little floating things and hook them to launch yourself to her. But as Dante, we can just trick directly to her, completely removing any modicum of threat this attack once posed. I don't know why you're just allowed to do this, but at least it doesn't take us long for us to knock her down again. After perfectly sidling on her charges, we bring her down to the ground once again, leaving her with just enough HP to finish her off with one roast taunt. Leaving her with just enough HP to finish her off with one roast taunt before she uses her beam. I can't have shit in this house. Don't hit me with a new record, that only makes it worse. Not the shearing again. Moving along, we find ourselves in the grasp of our one-sided relationship again, but with enough deviltry to actually break out of it for once. Seeing as we've entered the Son of Sparta difficulty again, we need to take things a very slight bit more seriously if we want to eat our meal on time. So please Capcom, just let me target the Fury Man. If you didn't know, you can actually tilt the stick in the direction of your target in order to find it more quickly. Despite this, I find myself preferring the targeting in DMC3, but that's probably just a me issue. Much like how me forgetting that the queen drops on you every time is a me issue here as well. But in the end I realize it might not only be the dropping that's the issue here. When fighting the Death Scissors, I've found that simply destroying their scissors is the easiest way of dealing with them. Sure, it takes a bit of time for Cavaliere to tear through them, but once they're gone, you can finish the job with a quick high side that pretty much always hits their weak spot. Stage 60 rolls around again, which means it's time to run over Cavaliere Angelo once more. The Royal Guard style is very useful at the start of the fight, when it shoots its bolts at us. If you know how to use it, that is. A quick tip for handling their teleportation is to chain different tricks together, like I do here. If you simply try to use air trick to get to them, you won't reach the entire distance, and you have to wait for yourself to fall to the ground to teleport again. A trick that can be chained, however, is the ground trick. So, you can perform any number of ground tricks until you're in range of Cavaliere Angelo. Then you can position yourself using an air trick, or another ground trick, if you so wish. Doing this allows us to quickly follow them across the arena, finishing the fight just barely failing they don't let them charge through. Remember our full throttle strategy that we use against the Furies? Yeah, fuck that. Let's use Royal Guard instead. That will surely go well. But to be fair, using full throttle doesn't go all that well either, though we do reclaim some of our lost honor on stage 70. You would think that a stage containing a bunch of these goons would be like a rest stage, to provide you with some breathing room after fighting like 5 Furies on the previous 10 stages. But if you know me, you know that I'm fighting for my fucking life over here. This trend continues for the next few stages, where I continuously get hit where I could have easily dodged, or just positioned myself a bit better. I guess this just goes to show that you should utilize the suspend feature when playing this, because by the looks of it, I could really use a break right now. Somehow we still survive until the upcoming boss fight on stage 80, which is of course Malphas again. We get off to a great start, managing to topple the chicken over in no time, which in turn lets us knock off about 50% of its HP right off the bat. We also get to see how it feels to ride a motorcycle on top of a chicken, and let me tell you, it feels very off-putting. And apparently the chicken doesn't seem to be a fan of it either. After pulling off a weird double knockdown, we launch Cavaliere straight into Malphas one last time, before making our way into Dante Must Die territory for the second time of this challenge. Just an anecdote, but surely I'm not the only one constantly getting jump scared by this stage, right? When they rise from the pool of blood, they really resemble the Fury, at least in my opinion. Apart from our minor heart attack, the stages leading up to our nemesis, King Cerberus, are fairly uneventful. I want to say this is because I've done this for a while now, so I'm getting better at my combos and all that, but in my heart I know it's because of that break we took earlier, meaning I don't get hit like a dumbass as often. Something that was eventful, and very funny, on the other hand, is that I managed to find out that the funny spinning move is actually kind of overpowered against the Proto-Angelos. I don't know how me of all people didn't know this, but until it uses its devil trigger, it does seem like this is an actual perma-stun on it, as it knocks it up in the air just before it's able to stand up again. So, if you're struggling with these, be sure to try this strategy out. If there's a thing I've learned so far, is that what goes around, comes around. This is something I get to experience firsthand during this Fury fight, as everything goes wrong very quickly. After pulling off some camera shenanigans to ensure that we can only get attacked by one Fury at a time, we barely managed to beat this stage, with our health dropping to dangerous levels, for what I think is the first time in this challenge. Luckily for me, stage 89 provides us with a full heal in form of these Clipe-Off tentacles. If it wasn't for this, we would not stand a fucking chance against King Cerberus here on stage 90. This time is different from the previous one. Not only do I seek revenge because King Cerberus is the boss we lost against during our last attempt, I am also looking to reclaim my honor, because the way we lost was extremely embarrassing. The strategy we go for is just the same as last time. We use Royal Guard to block his swipes, and then we strike back using the devil trigger we gain by blocking. The only real difference from last time is that I need to be a lot more conscious of how quickly I press the style button after switching from Royal Guard to Swordmaster or Trickster, as I don't want an encore of what happened last time. This goes really well for us, again, as we slowly but surely chip away on his health, enough to trigger a stun on him before his first element change. Normally, his Thunder State is a bit annoying to handle, but since we did so much damage to him already, he quickly changes to Ice instead. Dante has read some safety instructions on Icicles since last time we were here, so we effortlessly dodge these and send the puppies back into fire mode in no time. Which is great, since this is the best window we have of dealing damage to them. We bring him down to his devil trigger once again, which is when disaster strikes. No. Oh, I can't believe I did that shit again, dude. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. At this point in the run, I'm completely heartbroken. For all intents and purposes, each attempt has gone really well, and we haven't died once. The literal only thing I've lost to is me fucking up my inputs to use a royal release by accident. I'm very tempted to just unbind the Royal Guard style entirely, but without it we can't beat King Cerberus at all. It's as simple as that. Feeling completely washed, we start over and hope for greener pastures in attempt number 4. But hey, at least our dinner is ready by now. For the sake of brevity, and to spare you all from having to watch the early floors again, I'm just gonna summarize what happened up until stage 20 on Goliath. We killed some guys, we killed some more guys, we killed some guys while spinning, we killed this Cavaliere Angelo using our permastun technique, and we successfully killed the Fury without messing up for once. Not feeling too keen on messing around, since we have a long way to go before making it back to stage 90. We managed to dispatch the big meatball in record time. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean. Speaking of dispatching, we get the honor of once again killing enough bats to cause rabies to go extinct, as we make our way back to Artemis. But before that, check out this sweet combo. Okay, here it comes. Wait, what? It just ends like that? Yeah, before you guys go out to make your own challenge videos, it's best to make sure that you have enough fucking space on your hard drive to actually record the thing. Unfortunately, this means that all footage up until stage 41 is lost to time, but I'm sure you can fill in the gaps on how the Artemis fight went. One hint I can give you is that it involved enough flowers to make a gardener blush. With 2 down and 2 to go, we blazed through the stages, showing some masterclass in how to dodge Helldrejeckas along the way. By any measurable metric, this is not that difficult, but unfortunately it's pretty impressive for my standards. I mentioned before that zero height flying is something you should avoid in most circumstances, but this is one exception. As you can tell if you have eyes, the height of the withers for nobodies is approximately 3 bananas high. What this means in practice is that landing aerial attacks on these, from a jump, or even an air trick for that matter, is a little bit finicky. But if you stay in the air for long enough to fall, you should be perfectly in striking distance. This will of course leave you completely open for other attacks, which we need to keep in mind. Have a look at this, guys. Can you tell me what's wrong with this image? I'll give you a few seconds to figure it out. That's right, I'm using Royal Guard for some reason. What am I, fucking stupid? Haven't I learned anything up until this point? Oh yeah, that's more like it. It looks like 3rd time's the charm when it comes to fighting Cavaliere Angelo, as we perfectly managed to block all their initial shots. I'm not even kidding this time, we actually did. As has been the case for every attempt so far. Well, as has been the case for every attempt that we have actually made it this far. We completely mopped the floor with our feisty friend. Or should I say, mopped the stage. We even managed to end the fight with a literal bang, as Cavaliere Angelo charges up just as we killed him, launching sick fireworks in the process. Stage 70 rolls around again, and so does my disappointment in myself on not managing to utilize our new strategy as cleanly as I would have liked recently. I don't know if I'm panicking, what the issue is here really, but as a conciliation, at least this parry was a little bit different. I may be known by the authorities for personally engaging in cockfights at this point, but that won't stop me from fighting a good brawl. After making it this far 3 times now, we pretty much got this fight down to a T. Cavaliere is a big part of this, as the massive damage from the aerial attacks knock Malphas down quickly. It does get a little bit dicey when the chickens start jumping and screaming, but thankfully their bark is worse than their bite. Or the clucks were worse than their picks. I don't know. I don't know if the chicken knows either. Doesn't look like we can ask it anymore. Those of you who like green may have noticed that I didn't lose any health at all during this fight, which I think is pretty cool. Doesn't seem like the game agrees with me, however, as I don't get the no damage bonus for some reason. If any of you know what's going on here, feel free to tell me in the comments. DMD again. Did you know that Cavaliere's attacks have a slight magnetism to them? This might not be too surprising, seeing as this is a magnetic motorcycle after all, but I rarely get as lucky with it as I do here, leading to a super satisfying triple kill against these lizards. Just a little tip from me to you, this is probably not the order you want to take these guys out in. Not that it matters too much, but I find it a bit easier to send the behemoth to the afterlife first. Not only because they won't stop fucking running around, but also because it's really annoying if they double trigger before you can break their chains. Another tip, if you can even call it that, as I'm starting to realize that our new Fury strategy might be a bit better in theory than it is in practice. Not because it doesn't work, but because I always manage to blow all of my double trigger just before the stages I need it. At least we weren't in any real danger this time. Okay, third time's the charm. I really don't want to rely on Royal Guard here again, but like I explained earlier, I don't think we have too much of a choice. So if you're wondering why some of my aerial attacks look a bit scuffed or slow, it's because I'm using 350% of my combined brain power to make sure I don't press my buttons in the wrong order. This works really well, all things considered, as we managed to score a fairly quick knockdown on the puppies. A mistake I'm making here, that you probably shouldn't make, is using my aerial attacks while they're knocked down. This just leads to me getting pushed around, barely dealing any damage. Our old pal Full Throttle picks up some slack in the end though. Taking it slow is actually really paying off, as we slowly ship our way down to the Devil Trigger, knocking them over once again. Here I make the same mistake as during the last knockdown, but instead of getting punished, I actually get pushed into the mathematically best spot to deal damage. So let's just say I planned for this all along. Though I get a bit overzealous in the end, as I try to kill King Cerberus as they're switching forms, which very much does not work. Against all odds, we actually beat King Cerberus this time, meaning we have officially passed the first wall of this challenge. This is how I feel like the other tries should have gone as well, seeing as we were actually playing really good during both attempts, until we didn't. Now that we've actually cleared stage 90, I'm starting to feel a lot better about this challenge. But despite our recent victory, we can't get too comfortable just yet, as the last 10 stages of the Bloody Palace is when things really start heating up. Well, except for stage 91, that is. These guys don't really fight back much at all. Did you know that the snip the Death Scissors perform when they spawn from the ground is actually considered to be an attack? I knew that, but I still fall for it almost every time. You can probably forget what I said about stage 33 being a good stage for practicing staying in the air, as this one definitely takes the cake. Mostly because there are like 24 Death Scissors here, for some reason. Stage 94 continues the trend with Lusachas being extremely annoying, yet not actually that difficult to kill. As long as you just keep attacking them, they'll just teleport around without ever being able to touch you. The next 3 stages are pretty interesting. Stage 95 pits us against about half of the enemy roster at the same time, but at least most of the enemies present are fairly easy to take down. Stage 96 is similar to this, but a bit harder since we have to fight some tougher enemies this time. Thankfully, we have been able to get a lot of practice up until this point, meaning my play is immaculate, which I immediately prove by getting this nobody down to about 5% HP before it gets completely healed, while in Devil Trigger, mind you, by a green fly I was not keeping track of. This is target practice 101, as we obviously needed to do this to reach a triple S rank. After beating this bat to death over the course of about 5 minutes, we proceed on to stage 97. This stage is an absolute bloodbath. Personally, I've lost many good runs from being too reckless on this stage, and I have an inkling that some of you may have done so as well. The fight starts off strong, as we face off my favorite sponge in the game, along with a Heljudeca. And when I say along with, I mean that he's on our side this time, for some reason. After taking the Proto Angelo down, we perform one of the top 10 enemy betrayals, putting a swift end to the Heljudeca, as we turn our focus to the big brute and his girlfriend. This leaves only the teleporting assholes left. After dodging and weaving with perfect positioning, we can finally say goodbye to the normal stages, at least for this attempt. But before that, we could really use a bit more Devil Trigger, and luckily we have some willing participants here to help us. Despite jumping on this guy's head for over half a fucking minute, this is still a new stage record for me, somehow. Don't ask me what the fuck I was doing the other times I got to this point, because I don't know either. Stop sharing. That thing I mentioned, about things starting to heat up? Yeah, we're in the incinerator now, baby. As the last 3 stages of the Bloody Palace contain a boss rush. First on the chopping block is sitting Urizen, which I think is the only boss we actually haven't defeated using this weapon up until this point. Fortunately for us, we don't actually have to kill him entirely here, but we do need to break his crystal once, which, if you remember my last attempt at fighting this guy, didn't go all too well, let's just put it that way. But this time, we're stronger. For example, we know that if we attack his crystal in high gear, his fireballs can't actually hit us, as our attacks break them just in front of us. This is actually an awesome interaction for Cavaliere, but it would have been a lot more awesome if I actually knew about it at the time of fighting him. I can forgive myself for not noticing the first time, but the second time it's extremely clear that it broke. This is what happens when you're locked in, I guess. It stands to reason. Yuri-san was a little bit upset by the whole fireball thing, meaning we now have to beat some sense into not only his crystal, but to him as well. In the last video, I talked at length about how much I dislike certain parts of this fight. This mainly comes down to his homing tentacle attack, which is extremely finicky to dodge. If you combine this with having to break his crystal 3 times in order to actually kill him, this gives him many opportunities to use this move against you, potentially leading to your demise. This is not really the case in the Bloody Palace, however. While he still has the attack in question, the reduced health of bosses in the Bloody Palace comes into play in a big way here. You see, you don't actually have to break the crystal thrice. If you manage to deal enough damage to him after his crystal breaks, you can chain staggers on him until he eventually succumbs. Doing this requires a little bit of luck in his patterns, a little bit of skill in not getting knocked away by his wind pressure, and a whole lot of damage. And one thing we know about Cavaliere at this point is that its damage output is massive. Just look at how Yuri-san's health bar shreds as we attack him in high gear. All of these factors combined leads to this fight actually being one of the easiest in the entire run, ironically. The final stage of the Bloody Palace has us face Yuri-san's third form, the Athletic one, which is one of my favorite bosses in the entire game. A lot of this has to do with the block spam you can perform to instantly reach a triple S rank, admittedly, which we fuck up completely. Honestly, the start of this fight is a complete embarrassment on my part, but by some technicality of Cavaliere dealing so much damage, I managed to knock him down anyway, finishing the first phase of the fight in the most anticlimactic way possible. The second phase gives us another chance of reaching a triple S rank, which we blunder again. After scoring a second knockdown, we force him into his third phase. This is a really short fight, isn't it? This is our third chance to block our way into a triple S rank. And you know what they say, third time's the charm, right? Damn it. I usually never fail this trick, let alone 3 times in a row, so that surely bodes well. Even though this fight has been fairly easy so far, once the third phase starts, you really have to play conservatively, as he's really fast and can punish you extremely hard if you get ahead of yourself. It doesn't help that he's constantly moving either, as it keeps messing up my aerial combos. After a few minutes of playing catch up, we lay Yuri-san to rest, finally completing the Bloody Palace, setting a new stage record in the process. Is what I would say, but it turns out we aren't actually done just yet. You really didn't think the Bloody Palace would end without a Virgil fight, right? If you don't know Virgil, all you need to know is that he is essentially the lifeblood of this franchise. Also, his battle theme sits just shy of 140 million views on YouTube. Jesus Christ. In-game he's very threatening, especially on the difficulty we're on, where he hits hard and fast. Let's just say me and Virgil have some history, as he was almost a run-ender last time we fought him. Despite that, you can probably tell I'm pretty rusty at fighting him, since I couldn't land an attack if my grandma's life depended on it. Sorry, Grandma. What makes this even more ironic is that I perfectly block everything he throws at me, so I don't know why remembering my own attack patterns is such an issue. My ineptitude at least gets us some Royal Guard ASMR, for what it's worth. After slowly getting the hang of things again, we managed to hurt him enough to force his first use of Devil Trigger. Virgil's Devil Trigger is a bit different from other bosses and enemies in this game, as he gains a few new moves and some health regeneration. Since he's very fast, Cavaliere has a rough time keeping up with him in this phase. It's very similar to a McDonald's brawl in a way, as I could probably do something about this if I had some guns, but since I don't, I'm basically just forced to stand by and watch instead. So far so good. We managed to survive the onslaught of his first use of Devil Trigger, after which he gave us a lot of good openings, letting us drop his health ridiculously low for being this early in the fight. It's easy to get overeager in situations like these, but a battle-hardened veteran like me knows this fight has only just begun. At least we still have a lot of health, because we will need it for what is about to happen next. Once Virgil enters Devil Trigger for a second time, he summons this guy, the Doppelganger. I think you can tell what he does just from the name. He's a clone of Virgil that can use weaker versions of Virgil's attacks against us. The Doppelganger is a major pain point for Cavaliere, as most of our attacks leave us open for way too long to land a hit on it, causing us to get hit by Virgil's own judgment cuts instead. As you can probably tell from my strategic dodging, I'm very much panicking right now. The Doppelganger presents an interesting dilemma. A catch-22 at that. If I try to kill the Doppelganger, I get sliced to pieces by Mr. Anime Swordsman over here. And if I ignore the Doppelganger and focus Virgil instead, the fight is pretty much forfeit, for all the same reasons. The Doppelganger was difficult enough to handle during mission 19, but if you died there, you at least got to start the stage over again. If I die now, I have to drag my ass back to stage 101 again, which I'm very much tired of at this point. We need a way to kill the Doppelganger. Perhaps there's a move I previously underutilized? A move that comes in handy to kill certain teleporting enemies, maybe? You can practically see the moment the cartoon light bulb appears over my head, as I misclicked the non-DT version of Full Throttle. As if this move hasn't already given us enough, it is also apparently a clean one-shot on the Doppelganger. Though I will confess I was a bit lucky that I actually hit him, since my timing was way off. Some things never change, eh? After getting hit like 2 more times, Virgil summons the Doppelganger again. But this time, I'm not afraid. With our newfound ultimate technique, we have ascended to the top of the food chain. It is now I who am hunting you, Doppelganger. Okay, you can stop hitting me now. After banishing the Doppelganger one last time, we move our attention over to Virgil. The damage we inflicted on him earlier in the fight gives us a big advantage here, because even though we are one combo away from death, so is Virgil. Fortunately for us, we strike first, taking down Virgil on our first attempt.
What you lack is this. Thought you like it.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I did not think this challenge would go about so smoothly, especially not the last fight. The fact that I didn't even die once is something I'm very proud of. But the fact that I messed up not 1, not 2, but 3 times by not switching from Royal Guard to Swordmaster fast enough is really embarrassing. And something I need to work on so I don't fuck up any other challenges in the future. Speaking of the future, I've begun recording and working on a few other videos as well. Some Devil May Cry related and some not. To let you in on a little secret, one video I'm recording is a challenge run a lot of people requested in the comment section of my last video. So I hope you look forward to that one. And regarding the last video, I just wanted to give you guys a huge thank you for your amazing reception to it. When I pressed the upload button, I had no expectations of anyone actually seeing the video, at least not for a long time. So needless to say, your warm welcome absolutely blew me away. There were so many nice and constructive comments, so many views, so many likes, and so many subscribers. So, once again, thanks. It means a lot. As always, feel free to share some ideas on what you want to see next. I'm always open for suggestions. I'm also gonna try my hardest to get the next video up a bit quicker than this one, but I'm not making any promises. So, until next time, have a good one.